how did you get into turning in the first place, Colwin?
How did I get into turning? Hello, everybody, by the way. I got into turning pretty much from school. So I started with a work experience 3-week session. Enjoyed that session so much that decided to buy my own lathe and take it up as a hobby. And fortunately, that hobby then took me on to an apprenticeship straight from school. So I served 5 years as a production turner, and really the rest is history from there. 22 years ago, I started working for Axminster Tools with a short period of sort of self-employed turning in between as well. So it's been a long time. It's been about 36 years that I've been turning, but I've loved every minute of it. So I've never been to work, really, because I'm just living my hobby.
Fantastic. So what are you going to show us today?
So today, this was a little bit of a request, if I'm honest, to do a little trinket box. But when I think trinket boxes, firstly, I work with a great box maker, Jason Breach, and I didn't want to do anything that he already does. So I thought back to people that inspire me, and one of those guys was Rake. And the first book I ever got from as a turner was this one here, the Woodturners Workbook. And this is one of Rake's books. Now, one of his signature pieces are these boxes. So little trinket boxes. I'll just show you a better picture of that one. And I thought, well, why not have a go at making one of these? So I did have a little practice. And as an apprentice, we used to make lots of ring boxes. So what I thought we'd do is do one of those. I've got a couple that I made just to show you where we're aiming. So there's a couple. One of the most important things with box making is creating a good fit. So it's how we get that fit. And actually, I've just been requested, and coming out in 2 months in Woodturning magazine is exactly that. It's 3 turners, I'm one of them, how we all differ in making good fit on boxes. So there we are. You can see the grain running down through that piece. So this is what I'm doing. It's one of the Rake boxes.
Right. So what are those 2 boxes made from, Colwin?
So the dark timber is a piece of brown oak, and then we've got a nice piece. This is actually American ash, American white ash. Really hard, dense stuff, that one.
Yeah.
I've got the same 2 timbers to do as well. So I think I'm going to go brown oak because it's a little bit prettier. It's a little bit easier to turn as well.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So you're turning between centers or using the lathe? Using the chop?
We're going to do both. So what I've done is I've prepped up. So I think I'm going to go, I'll go with a smaller piece. What I've done, look, I've prepped up this piece of timber by just turning the 2 ends down so they fit into a chuck. There's a bit of a time limitation here of 40 to 45 minutes, and I wanted to get it finished. So I roughed it down from square to round, and I've put these 2 hold points on either end. And then in that point, we're going to use our chuck. And this is what we call an O'Donnell jaw on one of the Axminster made SK114s here. Going to hold it in there and then bring the tailstock up. So I'll show you how we're going to do that. Part him off, keep that grain running through the piece, and then sand finish and hollow out.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
In?
We've got certainly some people in the house. I've got people from York and Dereham in Norfolk. So off we go.
Excellent. Right. It's going to be frantic. We're going to go straight from start to finish. There'll be a few camera angles and things like that. So if you do have any questions, filter them through.
Yeah, we'll do.
Okay, so let's start. Now, I've got, like I say, a 4-jaw self-centering chuck here. And as a wood turner, this is probably one of the most important tools after the lathe and the dust extractor. And that's going to be used, like I said, to hold that little dovetail. And dovetails for me are quite important because they're going to give me the security and knowledge that I know that piece is pretty much staying in the lathe. Now let me just what I haven't done. So look, let's have a look at that. He's wobbling all over the place.
That's not sensible, is it?
Yeah, no. One thing you need to do. I've done the dovetail. That's lovely, but I didn't tidy at the bottom here, so we've just got to skim that. So back to between centers. I've already said that I'm going to use the tailstock even with the chuck attached, and I tend to do that to center up as well. I just find it gives me a far more accurate hold. So there we are. Let's just skim those nice and clean. This side first, and then I can hold that in the chuck and clean up the other side. The tailstock center is what we call a ring center. Again, that extra little bit of security. So we'll start with a parting tool. You can see how that's wobbling a little bit. So I'm going to just
replace the bottom, yeah.
That's all I need. And then back on with the chuck, and we can go back to our start position. I don't know how many of the members have lathes. I should imagine it's a fairly popular hobby, is our turning. It's certainly for us as a company, Axminster Tools, it's one of the biggest parts of the company. So I should imagine there'll be a fair few turners in the crowd.
Yeah, and there's a lot of sheds have their own lathes. I'm not sure that most of them are necessarily as slick at using their lathe as you obviously are.
That's like anything, like whether it's woodwork, whether it's carpentry, cabinet making, benchtop joinery, all of those things. The more you do, the better you get. When you talk to Peter Sefton later on, it'll be the same in his field. So when it comes to cutting a joint, for instance, doing a mortise, a dovetail, the more of them you do, the better you get. The thing is, I'm turning probably about 5.5, 6 days a week. So I get a lot of practice.
Yeah,
when I'm not teaching, I'm making.
Yes.
There we are. So we're going to start the shape straight away. Now we've held it in a chuck. If there's any ex-engineers or engineers in the audience, then you'll know that once you've held in the chuck, you clean that up and then try not to take things out the chuck, otherwise things get out of balance. So what I'll do now is just skim the surface so we've got a nice clean face using a bowl gouge, and I'm skimming now using a skew type cut.
So it's taking off very little, really.
Yeah, just to clean up. And most importantly, the bevel of the tool is working as well. So that bit that we always use to pair with on a carpentry chisel, that's really important on a turning tool as well.
Yeah, nice camera work there, Craig.
Why, thank you very much.
So this is going to be the join. So I think what I'll do is I'll do a ridged effect here. So I'll have a little bead. So if I do a nice wide cut with a big parting tool, so that's a 6mm, 1/4 inch parting tool. Then we'll go to a little 3mm or 1/8 parting tool.
So the bit in the ring center is the base of the box, and the bit in the chuck is the top of the box. Yeah.
Other way around.
All right.
There we are. So now that little, what I said is going to be a bead. If I get the beaded pot up.
Yeah.
So this is where we are at the moment. So this little bead here is going to be this bit here. So it's a little bit complicated at the moment, but as soon as I clear out the waste, you'll see exactly where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So let's go to do that. Let's go bowl gouge again. So, and we can start also thinking about the shape now. Now to get that the same, I'm just going to double check with calipers. I want the same diameter on the bottom of the box as I have up there on the top. There we go.
You've now set the sort of diameter of the top, which will then transfer to the base.
Yeah. There we go. Now I'll cut the lip. This section, it's going to be the internal lip, so the bit that gets gripped by the lid. Okay, so it's going to be nice and thin. There, and again, we can start shaping. I'll do a little bit of a clearance cut down here. Now, don't forget, my training was as a production turner. The speed that I turn at is practiced, and it's not important. As a craft turner, as a hobby turner, speed is not a consideration. It's not something you should even think about. I'm doing this to fill a certain amount of time. And if I was production turning as a business, then I have to, the quicker I hand, the more money I make, basically. But you will need to take your time when you're doing this. And if you take your time, you'll do a much better job as well.
I've got another viewer in from Blythe in Northumberland now.
Say that again, sorry.
We've got another visitor in the house from Blythe in Northumberland, from Blythe Manshed.
Ah, right.
A new shed that started up during the lockdown.
There we are, just rolling that bead, just very gently. I'm just using the tool in the hands. So basically the one I have to hand to create that finish. Now, again, passing tool and a side scrape just to give me a little bit more shape. And I think we're almost at our first point of sanding. So what I'm going to do now is roughly sand these two areas, then we'll part off, and then I can start hollowing. So quite quick and speedy. Dust extraction is going on. Hopefully you won't get too much sound coming through on that. We'll start with 100 grit. Get rid of my tool rest out my way a second, and just do the base, the sort of rough areas. I've got a lot more sanding to do before we finish, but I just want to get the worst out the way now. Could probably get away with starting with a 150 if I'm honest, but I'm not folding the paper over too many times because I want to feel how hot the paper's getting. I don't want to damage the timber by getting it too warm. There we are, 150, and then that's all I'm going to do just for the minute. We'll do a final sanding when we got the thing hollowed out. There we are. That'll do just for the minute. Let me just take a little bit more of a cut down this groove here, because we're going to now separate the two pieces. So I just want to make that a wee bit smaller. Dust extraction is not needed just for the minute. We'll turn the lathe off and we'll go to something that the woodworkers will be familiar with. A pull saw. So pull saw down that groove. I just slackened off the tailstock a little bit. I didn't want too much pressure from the tailstock, so I did wind it back a little bit, and that gives me the ability to cut without things binding up. Pop that out of the way. So there's the lid. I'm going to just put that to one side for the minute because we're going to hollow out the center. Now, I'm not going to go as far as I would normally do because that does take time just refining the shape. So we're going to do the bones of the hollowing. So I want a depth cut first. So I've got a drill chuck here. I've got a bit of tape already on there because of the ones I was doing yesterday, so I can judge from that. Lace me down a little bit.
That's just a standard center pin, woodworking dowel type bit, isn't it?
It is, yeah. This is just a jobber's bit, normal twist drill and a keyless chuck. Lathe speed there is 1200. Start the cut off. I'm going to drop it down a little bit. You can get quite a lot of screeching from this if the timber's really dry. So just by adding a little bit of wood wax will help. There we are, nice and quick. You saw how quickly I retrieve that chuck out of there. If you do that, you need to make sure you got your hand on the chuck as you pull back. Sometimes I've seen that done, and drill chucks left in the workpiece flying around, which is not
funny.
Not that good for your health.
No.
Tailstock just out the way. We can start hollowing. I'll do that with a small bowl gouge initially. Little 6mm 1/4" bowl gouge. Ramp the speed up. Now I'm turning there at 1600, and I'm going to side cut first. So easy that cut is. When you cut the side grain rather than end grain, it cuts so much quicker. Just roughing it out. Now I'm going to use the bevel. Sweep the handle. Get a little bit closer. Same again. A little bit more. There we are. With the bowl gouge, that's enough. I briefly mentioned Jason Breach earlier. Jason is a fantastic box maker. He's come up with his own design of box making tools. The reason I'm going to use this and the reason I like it so much, this is what we call a negative rake scraper. Perfectly designed for end grain in boxes, both in timber and if you want to do acrylic and polyester as well. And it's a very soft cutting tool, so it can allow me to go down the bottom of this box without too much aggression. I'm not fighting the tool. Gives a lovely finish. There we are. I'm going to stop and just check for thickness. And I'm happy with the thickness there. We're down at our bottom point, so we're good. So we'll do a little bit of sanding.
So that's now you've got the wall thickness more or less established now.
Yeah,
Do you ever have problems with that? I noticed that, I was sitting there thinking as a novice turner myself, how easy it would be to chip away the very edge of the box as you're scraping. How do you stop that happening?
You've got to be quite careful with that, especially when you get really, really thin on the wall, because you get a lot of chatter turn up as well. So the best thing to do is work on that top section, say the first ½ inch, 12mm, get that to the right thickness, then work on the rest of it. So you saw when I roughed out from the side grain, I then went back with the bevel rubbing to do the top section. Nice and careful. It's like any of the people watching out there, you'll know if you're bowl turning, the last few cuts on a bowl are always the nervy ones, because they're the ones that are going to get a catch, if any. Same here. So just a little bit more care. And also making sure that you leave enough material in the bottom of the box that's going to give you enough strength to hollow as well, because end grain is always going to be a little bit harder than the side grain.
Of course, right. Yeah.
We'll give that a quick sand. Again, you'll need to go over the sanding a little bit more than I'm going to. Watch those fingers. This is the 100 grit.
That's just a standard abrasive sheet. There's nothing special about that, is it?
Oh, the abrasive. So this is RB. So the Hermes RB 406 range.
Yep.
we use this. Well, I've used this now ever since I've worked for Axminster Tools.
Was that a cloth backed or a paper back?
The reason being, it's flexible. It's material backlet. I can get it wet. I can get it covered in oil, and it keeps going. You leave it in your jeans when you wash them. It also cleans the abrasive out, so you can carry on and use it for a little bit more.
Great tip. Great tip.
Just don't tell the wife.
No. Just welcome. We've got members now from Bromsgrove, somewhere in Essex, and Greenock in Scotland. So we're there's
welcome.
Gradually.
Hello. So I'm just going up a grade now of abrasive, 240, 400. With a little bit more sanding. There we are. That's going to do us. Just for the minute. Now, I'm not going to take that out. I'm not going to take that out of its base. I'm going to take it off the lathe. But essentially, that's that one. That's that one hollowed out.
Fantastic.
All
so
right.
quick too.
Nice and quick, that one. Now, let's go to the bit that we haven't hollowed yet, the lid. We need to make that fit. So we can start with my vernier. The only time you'll see me use a vernier in the woodworking shop is to do this sort of thing. So actually dead on 50 mil. Don't know how that happened.
You won't be able to do that again, will you?
I'm just going to mark that. Again, all the engineers are going to be crying it into their monitors watching me use a vernier like that. So we'll go bulk out again.
I guess you don't pay for your own tools that work in there, do you?
No, I do. That's a myth. You can drill this out before, but this is just as quick. You can get your fingers around and test thickness quite easily as well. What I would say, though, testing for fitness is something, so testing for the fit is something that you do regularly, because you can always take a little bit more timber away, but putting it back's an issue.
It's trickier.
To a certain extent, anyway. We'll talk about that in a sec. If you've gone a little bit too far, how we can add a little bit more timber back. Woodworkers will know these tricks. If you've dented a piece of furniture, then steaming. But we can use water as well to swell the grain, and that will help with a loose fit. The slowest part of the making process, this one, but we want it right. Another little tip when you're doing these is taper it slightly. So you get the leading edge in, and then you can size. There we are. See, that leading edge is now fitting. So if I cut to that leading edge, we should be all right. Just notice how much how often I'm stopping the lathe and checking. So we are fitting, but it's way too tight at the moment. One more cut. That's what we want, and we want the plop as it comes back off. Nice. So we're happy with that. So I'll just finish now the hollowing. How are we doing for time? We're all right. Got another 15 minutes yet.
Yeah.
So I can skim down the inside a little bit. Look how I'm sweeping that handle round to match the curve. So we've got a natural curve on the outside. Obviously, I want an equal curve on the inside. We want to keep the wall thickness the same. So the handle has to come around.
That's a half-inch gouge, is it?
This is a 6 mil, quarter inch.
6 mil. Thanks.
There we are. Happy. Nice clean finish on the inside. You're always going to get that from a bowl gouge. Well, you should always get that from a bowl gouge as long as the bevel's rubbing, which is key. Sometimes if the bevel's not rubbing, you'll end up raking the end grain and you get two patches opposite each other, of course, timber. So that's just because bevel isn't rubbing. I'll sand that, and then we'll take him off and clean the very top. We've got to get rid of this whole point. So just a very quick sand. Remember, like I said, you want to spend time on this. There we are. So what we're going to do now, that's hollowed out, so we don't need any more attention. Normally, I would sanding still the inside of both of these, give it a coat of wax, so just a paste wax on the inside. You put whatever, you can lacquer the inside if you want to, but that's what I would do. Again, that's the inside there, hollowed out already. Yep. So we basically got
there.
Yeah, well, we got a box that should match up. I find it. There we are. Grain should match up. We've got a fair fit there. So I'm going to hold this back in between the chuck and the tailstock. Make sure it all runs true. And we can then start thinking about cleaning up both ends. I'm going to get rid of all that timber. So tailstock with the same center, the ring center.
Come on, guys, let's have some questions for Colwin. Well, we've now got Midsummer Norton and Kings Lynn members turned up now as well. Well, in the comments, I'm guessing there may be more watching.
There we are. Let's get rid of some of that waste. So that's enough there. So we're going to cut that one off. Before I do that, a little bit of tape just to strengthen the join, just to make sure.
So that's just standard masking tape.
Bit of masking tape. That's all you need. They do sometimes go. I'm going to be completely honest with you. But if we can minimize the likelihood. There we are. Now we can start cleaning up.
Just a few gentle strokes to get it the rest of that button off.
That's it. You hit the nail on the head there, gentle. Yeah, you can't take a big cut now. Well, you can, but you don't want to.
No. That way lies disaster.
Yeah, 1600 revs, tickling that away.
I've had a comment from Chris Fisher. Can you tell me how tall the box will be, please?
Yeah, let's have a measure. Did you say that was from Chris?
That was, yeah, from young Chris.
Hello, Chris. Nice to see he's watching. Okay. Chris, that's 80 mil. About 80 mil.
That's 50 mil diameter, 80 mil tall.
Yeah, that's it. Yes. I'm going to just very quickly sand that. So 150. 240. And then 400. I've lost my 400. This is, this brown oak, you get away with 400. If you're doing an exotic timber, you'll have to go to 6, 8, even 1,000 for it, because they'll show scratches up quite a lot.
Is that because the grain's tighter?
There we are.
You can see the sheen on it already.
It's lovely. To be quite honest, John, the timber is doing me a lot of favors. It's working really well.
It's a very nice piece of. It's not got no pips or anything like that in it either.
There we are. That's a good fit. Probably a little bit tight, but I'm not going to do anything with it. I'm going to let it dry. Well, it's dry, but I'm going to let it sort of relax overnight, and I suspect it'll become a slightly looser fit tomorrow. Not loose, but not quite so screechy.
Yeah.
Let's just quickly take this off. Small parting tool, and then we can finish. Quick
question.
One. Yeah.
Does Colwin sharpen his own tools? I think I know the answer to that.
Oh, yeah. I've always have. As an apprentice, we were taught to hand sharpen, so no jigs or anything like that. But now, since I started for Axminster and the teaching became primary to what I was doing, I had people for 2 days, and in those 2 days, you had to send them away with the ability to sharpen their own tools. Hand sharpening it takes months, if not years, to learn. So yep. I was then encouraged myself to teach with jigs, because I could tell someone how to sharpen their tools with jigs and then leave them knowing that they would sharpen their tools, whether they were at home, whether they were with me or whatever. So yeah, that's what I tend to do nowadays as a norm, you know. Yes.
Yeah. So was that using the Tormex type?
So just a quick question, Colin, just popped up on screen here from Chris Malling. What model lathe is optimal for a newbie shed?
What lathe?
Yeah, a recommended lathe for a newbie to go in their shed.
Personally, and it depends on what size your shed is, as to what lathe you go with. You can go with a floor stand or you go with a benchtop lathe. If you're a woodworker as opposed to a woodturner, then a benchtop lathe would probably be better, because you could store it under the workbench when you weren't using it, unless your shed is huge. And then you've got the ability. If you wanted to push your turning on, then maybe a bigger lathe would be better. If you're unsure, it was a new hobby, then definitely go for a hobby over a trade, for instance. So those are your criteria. Is it your main hobby? Go bigger. If it's not, then think about storage under the bench. All right. Right, we're just going to part this one off. You can cut him off like we did with the top, or you can do this. You can part off. I'm just going to part off. The only issue you need to be careful of if you're going to do what I'm doing here is if the bottom of your box is really thin, then tearing the bottom of that box out. It's a common thing. So think about cutting them off with a saw if you're worried about that. Look, so we got a little bit to clean up there. We're going to do a reverse grip now with another piece of timber. So just instead of swapping my jaws, I'm going to change my whole chuck because it'll be quicker.
So what's the advantage of those O'Donnell jaws?
Well, they throw everything away from the chuck. They give me some room.
Right.
So instead
I figured that was what it was, but yeah.
Yeah, you look at now. So what I'm going to do is put in the C jaws. And so you can see now I'm right up against his face.
Yeah. You've got not much room for maneuver, have you?
No, exactly. So to do the bulk, that I found really, really useful.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the jaws on the chuck. So we've got it, in my mind, and the jaws on the chuck at my amateur men's shed, which is where I do my shedding.
It's knuckles and fingernails and chucks don't get on well with each other. So any space is better, you know.
So you've got
a bit of waste wood.
You've got a piece of almost spare timber, which you're going to turn into a, what do you call it now?
Sort of a chuck, really, a jam chuck.
A jam chuck, that's the word.
I'm pretty much going to do what we've just done with the top. I need to, it's 50 mil, wasn't it, from my memory?
Yeah.
50 mil. We're going to do the same thing.
So if you're doing this, is if you're doing sort of production turning, you really want to make sure that you've made one jam chuck and then that works for 10 boxes, kind of thing.
So right, yeah, you'd make the fit on the box fit the jam chuck rather than the other way round.
Yeah.
There we are. I don't need to go very deep because it is just to fit the lid. Sorry, to fit the base. So getting close now. Now I know we're close. I'm going to take the outside down a little bit. And the reason I'm doing this, twofold really. It gives me a little bit of flex, but I can also then tape again the box to it. When there's too much diameter there, you can't get a good area to tape. Taper. Check.
So we're now taking the bottom of the box to fit the jam chuck.
That's it.
Yeah. Someone's asked a question. What's the best chuck for our small medium lathe with a 16 by 3/4 inch thread? That's a nice difficult one.
16 3/4. So I would go with what we refer to as an SK100. So that's a 100 millimeter chuck on what's referred to as a T01 thread. That's a 3/4 by 16, as you've just said. So an SK100 with a T01 thread. All made here in Axminster, which is a rarity nowadays, I would have thought. But yeah, all locally made.
Well, I have to say I've been incredibly impressed by your spare parts availability to we were donated a lathe which appeared to have some parts missing, and when I emailed them, they said, "Yeah, we've got that." And this was a lathe that was produced in 1999. I was incredibly impressed.
Good stuff. He's fitting, but too tight at the moment.
So you can do the same thing with the masking tape.
Yeah, same thing. Masking tape it on. We want a good fit. We don't want it slopping around. There we are.
That's it.
But there, you can see why I've taken this down now, because now I can tape to it.
I've got some to tape too. So you've got to just take the pip off and then sand down.
That's it. That's it. I want to say dead easy, but
no, I'm not going to.
Practice is key.
Yeah.
So a little bit of 150. $240. This is a 400 here.
You can start to see the sheen developing now.
One thing I would say, just be a little bit careful of dust extraction. These boxes are quite light, and if they go up the dust extractor, they'll just shatter.
That's the end of that. Yeah.
That's the end of that. Yeah, exactly. And where's me? Right there. We are. Click.
Wow.
There's our little Reiki inspired box. No finish put on that. What I would normally do, sanding sealer, and then use buffing mops. And I usually use metal polish, so things like Tripoli, Tripomax, that sort of stuff. And then a solid carnauba stick with a loose leaf mop to give it a real shine.
Yeah. Would you normally do that straight away or leave it for 24 hours?
Yeah. No, I'd do that straight away. The sanding sealer straight away. You could leave that to sort of set, if it were, for a while if you wanted to. But the metal polishes are all abrasive, so when the fibers stand up from your sanding sealer, the metal polish will take all that off, clean it, and give you a real sort of silkiness to the finish. And then, of course, the carnauba on the top will give you that lovely gloss.
Yeah. I have dim recollections of using carnauba wax on turning I did at school, and I have done none since.
Yeah,
So that's a long time ago.
It was used a lot, and again, as an apprentice, we used to use it direct on all sorts rather than putting it on mops. Go literally hold the wax up against the project and then burnish it off.
Yeah.
And that works really successfully. And of course, it's used in French polish and all sorts of things. Friction polish, which woodturners use constantly, the friction polish here. That's the, a massive amount of carnauba waxes in our friction polish.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a good thing.
That's the chestnut product that you sell at Axminster.
It is.
Well, a few minutes left, guys. That was a brilliant piece of turning. I have to say, I'm very impressed. As Blind Woodturner said, wonderful presentation. Thank you all so much.
I bought a shed, I took it home, and I erected it. I bought a shed, I took it home, I'd selected it. I bought a shed, I bought a shed, I bought a shed. I followed the instructions, studied all the plans, worked day and night to get it right with blisters on my hands. And when I put the roof on and finished off the floor, I knew inside my heart of hearts I'd be ignorant no more. I heard a no inside my shed, I suspected it. I felt a no inside my shed, I detected it. I was so scared of what he said that I rejected it. He said, forget about the tarot, the I Ching and the runes. Get down your garden centre on a Sunday afternoon. Go past the cafeteria, blast all the flower beds. If you're searching for enlightenment, get straight for the sheds. And so we lived inside our shed, and we respected it. I taught him, and he taught me, and we perfected it. And all because I bought a shed.